In this video, I would like to go over how to tell whether the trig functions are positive or negative. Okay, well, first of all, you have to understand that in the coordinate point, cosine is going to correspond to x, and sine is going to correspond to y. If that's the case, tangent it will be equal to sine over cosine or y over x. Okay, now, also you have to understand the quadrants that you were taught back in Algebra 1 with the following signs for each quadrant. Okay, well, now let me ask you some questions now. So suppose that you're looking for being able to tell whether cosine is positive or negative in the let's say in the second quadrant. So you're going to take a look at the second quadrant, and since cosine corresponds to the x value, you're going to say cosine is negative there. All right. Well, what about cosine in the quadrant 4? All right, cosine in the quadrant 4. Once again, you take a look at the x value of the coordinate point, and in quadrant 4, cosine is positive. What about secant? Secant in the quadrant 2. Secant in quadrant 2. Okay, well, secant is just the reciprocal of cosine. They have the same sign. So in quadrant 2, cosine, we said cosine was negative, so secant is also going to be negative. All right, so the reciprocals carry the same sign. So tangent, cotangent, they will always have the same sign. Sine, cosecant will always have the same sign, and cosine and secant will always have the same sign. All right, let me do just one more. So tangent, what about if we're looking for being able to tell whether tangent's positive or negative in quadrant number 3? Okay, well, since tangent is equal to y over x, we're going to have negative divided by negative, and that's going to be positive. So tangent is positive in quadrant 3. Okay, so it's pretty quick. It's pretty easy to tell the signs of the trig functions. Now, let me give you some examples that are typical to the ones that we saw in our textbook in class. So we saw some problems where they gave us a coordinate point such as -2, 1, and they asked us to find the corresponding, let's say, cosine value. Okay, all right, well, right away you're going to be able to tell the sign of cosine. Cosine is going to be, once again, you're going to take a look at the x value, and so we have a -2 there, so cosine is negative. Now it's not going to be -2, but it's going to be negative a fraction. And how do you tell what that fraction is? Well, of course, you're going to have to do a little right triangle. You're going to have to put theta here on the bottom acute angle, and then use these numbers to label the triangle. All right, so this is the x, the -2 is the x, the 1 is the y. So you're going to put a 2 here on the side, on the bottom. All right, because this is horizontal. And notice I put a +2, not a -2. Now the y is 1, so the vertical is 1, and we're not going to pay attention to the fact that it's -2. We're going to get the answer to whether cosine is positive or negative just based on the quadrant at the end. All right, so let's do Pythagorean theorem. We're going to get a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So this is the square root of 5, and the fraction for cosine is 2 over radical 5. And of course, you should simplify it if you can. And we do that by multiplying by radical 5 top and bottom. But notice, we already knew that this was negative, once again, because of the quadrant that this is in. This point is in the second quadrant. Okay? All right, let me do one more sample problem. Let's take a look at the situation where they give us, say, secant. Secant is equal to a number, maybe 2. And they tell us that it's in the quadrant number 4, and then the question is find sine theta. Okay, well, secant being 2, we can put a 1 underneath the 2, and if secant is equal to 2, that means that its reciprocal is equal to 1/2. So cosine is equal to 1/2. Okay, so now we draw the little right triangle, and we can label it using Pythagorean theorem. We'll figure it out. But just so that you know, let me remind you again that being able to tell whether sine is positive or negative, that's pretty easy. I don't even have to do the fraction. So sine, it's in the quadrant number 4. Sine is negative in that quadrant. All right, so now the only thing that remains is just to find the fraction for sine, and for that you do have to do the little right triangle, label it, and figure out sine. It's radical 3 over 2, but remember that it's in the 4th quadrant, so it's negative. And so this is my final answer. Okay, and that is it.